Our two candidates will each have 90 seconds for an opening statement and 90 seconds for a closing statement. They will each have 1 minute to respond to questions. The candidate who answers first will also have 30 seconds of rebuttal time. A note to our audience. This is important. Please be courteous in responding to each of the candidates, and please refrain from responding until they have completed their statements. The moderator, that's me, does have the authority to add time to a candidate if I feel that his response has been interrupted by audience members. Now, on to our candidates. Governor Sam Brownback has served 4 years. This part of it is not timed. Okay. Governor Sam Brownback has served 4 years as the 46th governor of Kansas. Previously, Brownback served as Kansas Secretary of Agriculture. He has served 1 term representing Kansas in the U.S. House of Representatives and 2 full terms representing Kansas in the U.S. Senate. His running mate is Lieutenant Governor Jeff Collier. Governor Sam Brownback.
Thank you. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you.
His Democratic challenger in this election is State Representative Paul Davis. Representative Davis has spent the last 11 years in the Kansas House of Representatives. Since 2008, he has served as minority leader in the House. His running mate in this election is Jill Docking. All right, as agreed to previously, Governor Brownback will have the first opening statement.
The second.
Second, my apologies. Representative Davis will have the first opening statement.
Welcome to the State Fair. I'm Paul Davis. I'm a moderate, a common sense leader, an independent thinker. I'm also the son of 2 teachers and the parent of a soon-to-be kindergartner. And that's why the issue of public education is personal to me. That's why I've been a 12-year champion for our public schools in the legislature. That's why I oppose Governor Brownback's single largest cut to public school funding in state history. That's why I will make restoring those cuts my very top priority as governor. And that's why I'm supported by over 100 current and former Republican elected officials. The governor's experiment just isn't working. We are trailing our surrounding states and the rest of the country in virtually every economic growth indicator there is. And it has plunged our state deep into debt, $1.3 billion over the next 5 years, jeopardizing our schools and our future. We can do better. We have a clear choice in this election about whether we're going to restore the cuts to our public schools and get our state moving again, or whether we're going to hit the accelerator on a failed economic experiment. Now today, the governor is going to try to convince you that I'm somebody different than who I am. He's going to try to convince you that his record is something different than it is. But the reality is, I am a moderate, common sense leader who values our public schools and will make them my very top priority as governor.
Good morning, Kansas. Good morning, Kansas State Fair. Representative Davis, welcome. Good to have you here. I've been coming to these for over 40 years, and I love the Great Kansas Get-Together. This is fabulous. Now, everything you've heard from Representative Davis is wrong, I'm sorry to say. Number 1, there are more Kansans working now than ever in the history of the state. Number 2, we put more money in education than ever in the history of the state. And number 3, and this is a big one, number 3 is a big one, I support our rural schools. I'm opposed to forced consolidation of our rural schools. Now, my opponent, unfortunately, doesn't share my support for our rural schools. His top education advisor, John Grattel, is for forced consolidation. He said this about our rural schools. Listen to this. Consolidation is inevitable. Quote, and the sooner they realize that, the better off they will be. I say no. No forced consolidation of rural schools. I disagree with that. I think that is the wrong way to go. I went to a rural school. We need to preserve those. I call on Representative Davis to remove John Brattle as his top education advisor and from the Education Commission that he's appointed him to. Thank you for being here at the Kansas State Fair. This is a great get-together, and we'll have a lively debate. Good morning.
All right, I want to remind our audience again, as we get into this debate with the questions, please be courteous, because I will add time if I feel you're interrupting the candidate. After he has answered, you can do whatever you want to within reason. Okay? All right, on to our questions. The first question will come from Alex Dingman with the WIBW Radio News staff.
Thank you, Kelly. All right, let's talk education funding. In 2008-2009, Kansas spent $4,400 in base state aid per pupil. Last year it was around $3,800 according to the Kansas Legislative Research Department. Do you feel like we are spending enough money per student, and what will you do to ensure that our kids are set up for success?
All right, Governor Brownback will answer first.
Well, thank you very much for the question. And we have put a record amount of money in K-12 education, and we're going to continue to spend aggressively for K-12 education in the state of Kansas. We put about 52% of our budget in it, and that's great. But those are numbers. I want to talk people. My daughter's here as a 5th grade teacher, and she loves teaching. And it's the teachers that do so much for us in making our state a great place. My oldest son is going into education. He wants to be a professor. I started out in education. What I am saying is that we are putting record amounts of money in education, but we do that because we as a state love education. We see education as a transformative thing, like what Gary Harvey did for me, my VOAG teacher, when he brought me to the Kansas State Fair, when he got me involved in Future Farmers of America, and I was elected state president of it. That's what I'm going to do. We're going to put more money in education, and we value the system that produces such great people like my daughter who loves education so much and here with us today.
You know, Governor Brownback is going to try very hard to rewrite his record on education, but he simply has never made education a priority. When he was in the U.S. Senate, he voted against Head Start repeatedly. He voted against after-school programs, voted against funding for new teachers, and then in his first year in office, he implemented the largest single cut to public school funding in state history, and he called it a victory. He's cut early childhood education. He's cut higher education. We need a governor who is going to make restoring the cuts that Governor Brownback made to our public schools the very top priority, and that is exactly what I will do as governor.
Governor, 30 seconds of rebuttal time.
I wish Paul Davis would have voted for some of the money we put into education. He's voted against putting money into education every chance he can. And on top of that, Governor Mark Parkinson said this. When he was looking at running for re-election in 2010, said, no, I'm not going to be governor again because I am the architect of the largest budget cuts in the history of the state of Kansas, the largest tax increase in the history of Kansas, and Paul Davis voted for that. That's what he voted for. He talks a good game, and then he votes the other way.
All right, next question. Next question will come from Nick Sween, managing editor of the Hayes Daily News.
Thank you.
And it will go to Representative Davis first.
By not allowing the federal expansion of Medicaid to take place in Kansas, it is estimated we have left 380,000 residents without coverage. Hospitals in rural and depressed settings continue to treat these individuals, with the local communities eventually paying the price. Representative Davis, what would you do with this component of the Affordable Care Act? And Governor Brownback, do you have any future plans?
Well, I'll tell you what I will do, and it's not to play politics with this issue. I've spent a lot of time listening to hospital administrators, listening to nursing home administrators, listening to physicians, listening to people who own home health agencies, and listening to those over 150,000 Kansans that could get coverage from this. Our rural hospitals desperately need this. I have had too many conversations with rural hospital administrators who have said they may have to close their doors if this doesn't happen. We can inject $3 billion into our state's economy. We can create lots of jobs. I'm not going to play politics with this. I'm going to follow what other Republican governors are going to do. Chris Christie in New Jersey, Jan Brewer in Arizona. That's what we should do.
Now let me be clear here. What Representative Davis wants is to implement Obamacare. That's what he is after. He was for an early innovator grant in the state of Kansas. Obamacare will cost us $1 billion to implement. It will move people ahead of the list that are on waiting lists created by the former administration in Medicare, in Medicaid. And by the way, on the rural hospitals, Obamacare took money from Medicare, which goes to our rural hospitals, and put it into Medicaid, which doesn't go as much, and he supports Obamacare. That's taken money directly from our rural hospitals. He shouldn't have supported Obamacare in the first place. That's not the place to do it. And we have expanded Medicaid. We've added 80,000 people to Medicaid since I've been governor of the state of Kansas. And we've taken people off the waiting list because of Dr. Collier's work as lieutenant governor, a surgeon heading up our Medicaid list. We have expanded and have a better Medicaid system than Obamacare.
Representative Davis, 30-second rebuttal time.
Governor, I just don't think you're listening to our hospitals, because what I hear from them over and over again is this is an issue of survival for them. Frankly, on top of your CanCare program, which has been a disaster for them, they have had claim after claim after claim denied. They're not getting paid. You know, it's not really managed care, it's limited care or no care in many circumstances. I'm going to follow those Republican governors, your friends, who said they're going to do the right thing with this. For Chris Christie, Jan Brewer, John Kasich, they have put the people of their state before politics, and that's exactly what I'm going to do.
I'm reminded again that we are in the Bretts and Young injury lawyers arena. Let's hope we don't have any injured lawyers before this is over today. By the way, it is a gorgeous day here on the State Fairgrounds.
It is.
Absolutely. Our next question will come from Michael Schwanke, KWCH-TV in Wichita. And it will go to Governor Brownback first.
All right, thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you, gentlemen. I want to know which one wants to take credit for the weather today, because it is beautiful.
Well, I've been praying a lot.
Here's my question. The Kansas Legislature's nonpartisan research staff shows a state budget shortfall developing by July of 2016. The reserves will cover the deficit next year, but by July of 2016, there will be a $238 million shortfall. How do you address that? If you will cut, then where specifically? If not, will you raise taxes?
Thanks for the question. You know, when I came into office, the prior administration that Paul Davis had voted for and helped with left us $876.05 in the bank account and a projected deficit of $1.5 billion over the next 16, 18 months. And we fixed it. We ended this fiscal year with $434 million cash on hand. $434 million. And what we are doing, we are growing. We are hitting our budget numbers, and we're going to put those budgets together, and we're going to be in a great shape. Now, my opponent for a long time has just been saying, look, the sky is falling, the sky is falling. The sky fell while he ran the place. Our budget was in a catastrophe, and our CAPERS system was in the bankruptcy zone, and it now isn't. We're going to continue to perform and perform well in having a good, solid budget and investing in K-12 education record amounts of money like we have been.
You know, Governor Brownback is just sticking his head in the sand on this issue. Governor, your $876 number has been disproved over and over again, and you need to stop saying that. There was over $230 million in the bank when you took office, and you know it. We are in this situation, make no doubt about it. We are in this situation of debt down the road because of the governor's economic experiment. $1.3 billion over the next 5 years. That is jeopardizing the quality of education for an entire generation of Kansas kids, including my daughter. And I'm not going to stand for it. We've got to do something about it.
Time.
Well, yes, Paul Davis has proposed to do something about it. It's to raise income taxes on the lowest income people in the state of Kansas. He is proposing to raise 17% income tax on people making $15,000. Why do people making $15,000, why are they even paying income taxes in the first place? We should be allowing them to earn money that they can keep and that they can use in their own lives. And here's a fundamental difference. He thinks the government spends your money better than you do. I think you spend your money better than the government spends it.
Our next question will again come from Alex Dingman with the WIBW radio news staff. Alex?
Throughout the downturn in the economy, agriculture has been able to withstand a lot of the economic woes. In the past month, we've seen announcements by ag manufacturers Deere Co. and ADCO on workers at the Deere plant in Coffeyville, and the ADCO plant in Heston are going to be laid off. Any concern on your part this may be early signs of struggles ahead for the ag industry in the state?
And this will go to Representative Davis first.
Well, we certainly hope not, because our agriculture economy is vital to the future of our state. We need to do some very key things if we are going to be able to help agriculture grow. We're going to have to deal with this water problem that we have. And, you know, I'll give the governor a little bit of credit here because he's heightened the discussion about this. But the problem is that we have not made it a priority. Everybody that you talk to about the water issue knows that we are going to have to devote some resources to this. The governor has defunded our water plan every year that he has been in office. We cannot address this issue and the other critical issues that we have, not only for Kansas agriculture, but for our whole state, when our state is in $1.3 billion of debt. And that is exactly where the governor's economic experiment has taken us.
I have some concerns for the agriculture industry, and a lot of it comes from the Obama administration, which my opponent supports. The Obama administration wants to regulate water in every ditch in the state of Kansas. They want to rule the ditch. I say ditch the rule. He's for this. I'm against that. The Obama administration wants to regulate prairie chickens in the state of Kansas so that 1/3 of the state you can't farm. They want to regulate all of the range. I want you to be able to have a home and a business out on the range. This is what he stands for in an administration that is opposed to rural America. That is opposed to rural America, that's fighting our way of life and our opportunities. What I want to see us do is to be able to grow, and under our administration we have grown. Kansas dairy industry, fastest growing in America. Kansas wind production has doubled while I've been in office. Oil and gas production has increased. Agriculture is growing and will continue to grow under a second Brownback administration. I'm the son of a farmer. I know agriculture. It's going to do well under the Brownback administration.
Governor, you mentioned the wind industry and your support from the wind industry, which seems to be changing here lately. You know, if we're going to help rural Kansas, we've got to have a renewable portfolio standard that is going to show the wind industry that we are open for business. A few weeks ago, you said you supported it, then you didn't, now you don't again. What is your position on the renewable portfolio standard? Are you going to support it?
I'm supporting it a lot more than you did, who voted against it because it was associated with the Holcomb Power Plant. He voted against the RPS.
Will you veto a bill that repeals the RPS? Governor, this is a critical issue for our state.
Let's see here if the bill gets to my desk.
I will veto a bill that repeals our RPS. I will stand up for the wind industry in our state. It's future. We need it for our economy.
Well, all right, we need to get on with our questions. I'm certainly glad I wore my control briefs this morning. Nobody said this was going to be a dull debate, okay? All right, our next question comes from Nick Schween, Managing Editor, Hayes Daily News. It will go to Governor Brownback first.
Touching on the water issue, even as a plan to save the rapidly declining Ogallala aquifer is being put together, it appears there will be no push to force irrigators, to cut down their usage. Voluntary efforts would be great, but they fly in the face of economics at times. Would either of you advocate doing what truly is necessary, mandate dramatic reductions?
Thank you for the question on water. Without water, we have no future. And that's why I've put so much time and effort into the issues of water in this state. That's why we repealed the use it or lose it water doctrine that should have been repealed a long time ago. That's why we implemented a strategy that I think is the right way forward. It's the local intensive management areas. And that may be in the weeds for you. But what it is it's a group of agriculture, farmers, users, city people that are using water and bind themselves together to reduce the amount of water they use. We've got the first one in northwest Kansas. They bound themselves together over a 5-year period to reduce the amount of water they're using by 6 inches, and that will amount to a lot over a period of time to conserve and extend the Ogallala aquifer. This is a topic I've been working on since I was in law school and wrote on it. This is a topic I've worked on while I was Agriculture Secretary. We've got a 50-year water vision being developed. I have credibility on moving this topic forward, and we've got to address our reservoirs, some of which are silting in. We're going to start next year the first dredging of a reservoir in the state of Kansas, so we'll have water supplies in eastern Kansas as well.
This is the most critical long-term issue that our state has. It is a complex issue. There are a lot of people who have very different opinions on this, but I will tell you that everybody who is a stakeholder in this debate will agree on one thing. It is going to take some resources to address this issue, and we have to address this issue because it is vital to our state's economy. The governor the other day attacked me for not having credibility. Well, you know, credibility would mean that you would fund the current water plan that we have, but he has defunded it every year he's been in office in order to subsidize his economic experiment that is failing our state, led to 3 credit rating downgrades, has got us 45th in the country in new business creation, and has run up $1.3 billion of debt that means more school cuts down the road.
I don't know where you learned your math, Paul, but it must be one of those newfangled things that so many people don't agree with, because your math is all wrong. All wrong. Our unemployment rate's 4.9%. We have a record number of Kansans working. We have the fastest growing economy in the region and more new businesses created than ever in the history of the state. I don't know where he gets his math. And by the way, on water issues, who do you think he would appoint at KDHE? Somebody like Rod Bremby that shut down Holcomb before? Somebody that didn't agree with you?
All right. Next question comes from Michael Scuzzi, KWCH-TV in Wichita.
Schwanky.
Schwanky. My apologies.
Did you say snoozy? Am I that boring? All right, this one goes to Mr. Davis, correct?
Yes.
Okay, I do have a couple of directed questions, so I'll begin there. Mr. Davis, you've criticized your opponent on education funding issues and have said if he's elected again that funding for Kansas public schools will be cut. My question to you, what is your specific plan for education and how will you pay for it? Are you willing to raise taxes to pay for education?
You know, it's interesting, the governor was talking about math problems. I haven't made any billion-dollar mistakes, Governor. We cannot grow as a state if we are going to be encumbered by debt that is going to lead to more school cuts. Governor Brownback has shown us before that he will cut schools, and he will have to do it again. What we've got to do is end this experiment that isn't working, and I've proposed a plan to do exactly that. Freeze tax rates where they are on January 1. Let's get our fiscal house in order, and let's make restoring our school cuts the very top priority. That's what the children of Kansas deserve.
Governor?
I will continue to support education. We'll continue to put funds in it and more funds in it. I will continue to support our schools in the state of Kansas. And let's go through this cut. The cut was the Obama stimulus money going away that Paul Davis agreed putting it in the budget in 2010 under Mark Parkinson. I came into office. They left me a $500 million projected hole. We put $100 million more in education that first year. It wasn't the $200 million that the Obama administration pulled away with. These are budgets and situations that he left. He left a fiscal train wreck in the state of Kansas, and he's the Democrat leader then. He's the Nancy Pelosi of Kansas. That's who he is, and that's what he did.
All right. 30 seconds.
Now, Governor, you can blame everybody you want, but the fact remains that you made the single largest cut to public school funding, and all you have to do is talk to these teachers out here. I talked to a teacher the other day that has over 30 kids in her classroom because of the cuts that you've made to public schools. You've never made public schools a priority unless there's an election right before you. We need a governor who is a 12-year champion of public schools, and that's what I've been, and that's what I'll be as governor.
By the way, for the benefit of our radio audience, and this is airing live on WIBW Radio, it's also being streamed on our website, and I know it's going to be running on many other radio stations throughout the state. I want to tell our radio audience that there is no seating room left in this arena, and we have many people on the sides. I've been at this fair for many years, involved in activities, and I have never seen this many people in here. All right. Our next question will come from Alex Dingman, and it will go to Governor Brownback first.
With fewer jobs offering pensions, some public pension systems facing underfunding, and more than 70 million workers without access to a retirement account at work, what will you do to help Kansans save so they can have a secure financial future?
One of the key things we've already done for Kansans that are saving for their future is fix the Capers mess that I inherited. The Capers system was in the bankruptcy zone, and there are about 250,000 Kansans on Capers. It was in the bankruptcy zone with about a $10 billion unfunded obligation that was in it. It was second least funded in America, and fortunately Illinois was there. We'd been the least funded in America of our pension system. So Jeff Collier and I went about fixing it. We put more funds in it. We've put more funds in CAPERS, changed the system for next year. People have a cash balance system on the new folks that are coming in. And now on a number of different rating agencies, we're rated about middle of the pack, and we're out of the bankruptcy zone on CAPERS. It's an amazing accomplishment that we're able to do on a bipartisan basis and move that system on forward so that we can save. That's a critical one, and it's been a fabulous accomplishment for us moving that system on forward to solvency.
I'm very proud to have as my running mate Jill Docking, who has devoted 30 years as a financial advisor, and she has been a strong advocate on this issue for many, many years, and you can bet that she will be involved in it in our administration. What we can do to help people save is to get our economy above the national average, not below the national average. Look at where we are at right now. The governor's own Council of Economic Advisors several months ago documented that we are trailing the states in our region in virtually every economic indicator there is. Our credit rating has been downgraded 3 times. We're 45th in the nation in new business creation. In 2013, more businesses closed up shop than opened shop. It's because we have an economic experiment that isn't working. Let's return to a proven Kansas model of growing our economy, and that's how we're going to help Kansans.
When he talks about a proven Kansas model, listen carefully. He's talking about raising your taxes. That's what he's talking about. And the initial tax increase goes on people making $15,000 a year. Again, I don't know why they're paying income taxes in the first place. Why would you be taxing somebody that's making that much income? Our plan is creating jobs, and let me give you a quick story. Patty Bossert, we cut the income taxes. She's in a position now, she's expanding her business from Topeka to Manhattan, Kansas. We've had record numbers of new business filings at the Secretary of State's office. I don't know if he can't find that office or what, but that's what's happening in the state of Kansas.
Next question, I believe.
Rebuttal time? Was it rebuttal time?
Next question.
Got it. All right. Next question will come from... Next question will come from Nick Schween.
What are your thoughts and what is your stance on the proposed coal-fired power plant to be located in Holcomb, Kansas?
This will go to Representative Davis first.
You know, when this issue came before the legislature a number of years ago, I represented my district on this issue. My district had strong feelings about it, and I didn't support the plant. But the fact of the matter is the permit has been issued, and this issue is out of the hands of elected officials at this time. There's nothing that Governor Brownback or I can do more. But what we do need to do is to continue to grow the energy sector of our economy. And the way that we can do that is to support the wind industry and to show the wind industry that we are open for business. And if we're going to do that, we've got to have a governor that will stand up for our renewable portfolio standard. Governor Brownback said a few weeks ago he would phase it out. Then he said a few hours later, oh, no, I didn't really mean that. And then a couple days ago, he said, oh, I think I'll phase it out. We need some certainty. The wind industry needs certainty. They need a governor who's going to stand behind them because this is critical to the future of our economy.
All right, Governor. Those were your people, so.
Well,
I like the guy with the bongos, by the way.
I support the coal-fired power plant out of Holcomb, a clean coal plant. I supported the proposal that it went together with, which was an RPS and a coal-fired power plant proposal that came together in front of the legislature. That was the deal that was brokered, and my opponent was so extreme, so liberal, so much the Nancy Pelosi of Kansas, he votes against what Mark Parkinson put forward as a proven deal to get both of these forward, the RPS and the coal-fired power plant. And by the way, I've supported the renewable portfolio, the tax credits federally. I've supported those, and that's what's doubled wind energy in this state. I will stand second to nobody on support for wind. It's doubled in this state while I have been governor. It's a great resource that we have. My dad was raised on a farm using wind energy. We can do it moving forward, and we will.
Governor, that's a lot of good rhetoric on wind, but the other day you said that you would support a phase out. That is going to hurt the economy of Kansas. You know, just down the road here, Siemens, 400 great jobs, and I want more of them. Will you commit, as I will, to veto a repeal of the renewable portfolio standard?
All right. Next question will come from Michael Schwanke, KWCH-TV in Wichita. Did I get it right, Michael?
You got it right.
Good.
All right, I do have one more question specific to a candidate. This one goes to Governor Brownback, correct?
Yes.
Governor Brownback, I feel we have to address this issue because it's so recent. In recent weeks, you appointed a Kansas Supreme Court justice who had less than a year of experience on the bench and who worked for your administration. Can you answer your critics, including your opponent, who says instead of choosing a judge with more than 20 years on the bench, you chose a political ally?
Absolutely. I'll be happy to answer that question. Caleb Stegall is the most qualified, talented person on the Kansas Supreme Court today. And if you'll let me, if you'll let me say what he is, he graduated third in his class at KU. He clerked for a circuit court judge, Danelle Taha, one of the most respected jurists in the state of Kansas. He worked for the largest law firm in the state of Kansas. He was an elected prosecutor in Jefferson County. He's been a prosecutor there. He's had a great private practice. He was general counsel for me, and he was on the Court of Appeals. There is nobody that even applied that's close to his qualifications. Nobody that would apply that even close to his qualifications. This is an incredible. One of the people on the panel called him a legal prodigy, saying this guy is an amazing, qualified candidate. And he is. He could end up in the Court of Appeals, on up the Federal Court of Appeals, or further in the future. He is an amazingly qualified, brilliant man.
The governor had a choice between three people. One had 24 years experience as a judge. The other had 23 years experience as a judge, a woman, and Mr. Stegall, who had less than 1 year. I think it's pretty clear that he didn't choose experience here. And that's consistent with what he wants to do the judicial selection process. He wants to take away the transparency. He wants the governor to have more power so we can inject more politics into our judicial selection process. We have a process that has served this state very well, and we need to keep that process.
Paul Davis is a liberal. He would appoint a liberal on the Supreme Court. And there's another thing. The U.S. Supreme Court just overturned a Kansas Supreme Court decision 9-0 on a death penalty case. 9-0. The U.S. Supreme Court overturning the Kansas Supreme Court. I put a former prosecutor on the Kansas Supreme Court. He's not going to vote for an opinion that gets overturned 9-0 by the U.S. Supreme Court on the death penalty case. That's an important thing to have, is somebody with some breadth of experience and that prosecutorial experience.
Next question will come from Alex Dingman, WIBW Radio News staff, and it will be directed initially to Representative Davis.
A lot of news this year that the VA systems here in the nation are broken. Do you feel this is true for Kansas veterans? Is the system working, or are they getting the treatment that they require and deserve?
Well, I have a little bit of special perspective because my wife is a psychologist and she spent her entire career helping homeless veterans. And there are some serious problems in the VA system. And you don't want to get her started on it because, boy, will she give you an earful about it. But, you know, there are a lot of things that we can do, our Kansas hospitals and healthcare providers, to help veterans across the state. Many veterans are located in places where they don't have access to a VA, and I think that we ought to be able to create a system whereby they can get access to healthcare, VA, government-sponsored healthcare that they have entitled to, they are deserved, and they've sacrificed for at hospitals all around Kansas. And I'd like to work with the federal government to make that possible, to do something very good for veterans.
We need to do a lot better by our veterans, and I think they're being let down by the VA. I've said that then, I say it now. Unfortunately, what you're seeing in the VA system is a system where people have to queue up and you've got to wait because there's not enough care available. And they're making people do that. We need to add more resources into the VA system. We need to take care of our veterans better. But this is also a cautionary tale. This is what you will get under Obamacare. You're going to get a waiting system where you're going to get a rationing, but the rationing is going to be out of a waiting. They're not going to say you're going to be denied any care. What they're going to say is you've got to wait to get care. You want to get a knee replaced? Fine, get in line. That's the problem, and that's been the problem with the VA system, is they're making people queue up and wait. And that's not what we should do to our veterans. It's certainly not what we should do to health care for all Americans. And unfortunately, my opponent supports Obamacare and its expansion and implementation, which this administration isn't even implementing Obamacare because it doesn't work.
You know, I can understand why someone who spent 16 years is fixated on Washington, D.C. You know, there's only one candidate on this stage that has an open presidential campaign committee, and I can assure you that it is not me. And Governor, if you want to make this election about who it is that I supported for president, you might take a look at your last election for president. He's under indictment right now in Texas.
Before we get to our next question, and by the way, thanks to both of you for keeping this lively.
Yes, you're welcome.
Before we get to our next question, are your running mates here?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. From Governor Brownback, Jeff Collier, where are you?
Dr. Jeff
right
Collier, surgeon.
And Representative Davis, Jill Docking.
Jill Docking.
And I might also add their families are here today. Just, if you don't mind, just standing up.
Mary,
we can
Abby,
see you.
Jenna.
There we go. Excellent. All right, we've got time for maybe two more questions here. Let's go to Nick Schween, Managing Editor, Hayes Daily News.
Thank you. Many people in western Kansas believe those in the highest power in Topeka have little regard for those in their region of the state. What are your plans to ease the minds of western Kansans to let them know the highest ranking official in the state deems them just as worthy as those in the eastern portion of the state?
All right, Governor.
Well, I'm going to do what I've been doing, that's be there a lot. I've been in all 105 counties as governor. I've been in all 105 counties many times. I don't know if my opponent has been in all 105 counties at all. I love the rural parts of this state, and I go there often and I work on their issues. I work on issues like water. I work on issues like preserving our schools. I work on issues like environment and education and on things to be able to grow the economy. And I'm going to involve a number of them in our administration. The head of KDHE was a rural doctor in Tribune, Kansas. You can't get much better than that or further west than that. Or Pat George out of Dodge City is the head of the Secretary of Commerce and does a fabulous job and understands the heart and soul. And by the way, my running mate grew up in Hayes, America, and there's only one of those. So we're going to involve people in our administration that are from all parts of the state and from the rural parts of the state to bring in that attitude. And our rural opportunity zones has been a great opportunity for rural areas. Zero income taxes if you move into one of these counties and helping with $15,000 on student loans through our rural opportunity zones that our administration started.
All right.
We are a rural state, and this fair is a great celebration of rural Kansas. And when I spend time in rural Kansas, I've got some great supporters, folks like Fred Kerr in Pratt, Steve Morris, former Republican members of the legislature that are supporting my candidacy for governor. We can offer all the incentives that we want, and some of them are very, very important. And Governor, I've supported your rural opportunity zones, but folks are not going to continue to live in rural Kansas if we don't have great public schools, and that's why we've got to restore the cuts to our public schools. You know, earlier, Governor, you mentioned consolidation. Your school finance plan would have been a disaster for rural Kansas. The superintendent of schools right here in Hutchinson said this was a worst-case scenario for his school district. That's one of the reasons it didn't go anywhere in the legislature. I will be a governor that will stand up for rural schools. No forced consolidation.
Paul Davis is the Democrat leader in the House. There are now no elected Democrats in the State House west of 81 Highway. It got so liberal that Jan Pauls, the state rep from here, a Democrat, switched parties, become a Republican because of that. And people are important. So Tyler Longpine worked for Paul Davis, longtime person worked for him, and he wrote this: there are no two Kansas communities less interested in one another than Douglas County and western Kansas. It's important who you have around you and how they associate and what they say.
All right. We have time for one more question, and as moderator, there will be no rebuttal time on this question. And we're going to limit your response to 45 seconds so we can get the closing statements in. The next question comes from Michael Schwanke, KWCH-TV.
Wichita voters will decide in November on a 1-cent sales tax, of which part of it will go to create a jobs fund. Do you support the use of taxpayer money for job creation?
You know, I'm going to let the citizens of Wichita make that determination. I believe in local control. I will tell you this. The folks in Wichita know that their economy has been lagging, and they're trying very hard to do something about it. And I want to work with them as governor to help grow the economy in Wichita. They have some of the highest unemployment in the state there, and we need a governor who is going to roll up his sleeves, be a partner with communities, and use proven solutions to grow our economy, and that's what I'll do.
I agree with Representative Davis. I think that's a local decision for them. At the state level, we will and we do use state monies to be able to recruit businesses in. That's how we got Mars into the state of Kansas. It was a sweet deal. Glad we got them here. It's also, by us creating a better tax environment in Kansas, we are growing private sector jobs on the Kansas side of Kansas City 3 times faster than on the Missouri side because we got our taxes down. And that's a critical thing for growth. We can make Kansas City a Kansas City. With the more private sector jobs there, we have a better environment on our side, a great education system, a better tax system, good highways, and that's what we're going to continue to do in my administration.
All right, we're going to go to closing statements now, and as agreed to prior to the debate, Governor Brownback will have his closing statement first.
Kelly, thank you. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for making this entertaining, and it certainly has been that. I love coming to the Kansas State Fair. It's one of those great Kansas get-togethers. I love seeing all the people and the products of the land and what this state is about. And the good-hearted people of Kansas are fabulous. There are none better anywhere in the world. These are the best people anywhere. I'll stand up and fight for you every day, and I love this job being able to do that. Now, Jeff Collier and I want 2 things. We want to make this state the best place in America to raise a family and grow a small business. And we're a long ways along our path to being able to do that. And we're going to keep pushing that dream. We're going to keep pushing that model. of Kansas, this bright shining star, moving forward. We've had to dig out of a lot of problems of our past. We've had a lot of things that haven't worked well in our past, and we're on the right track now in moving our state on forward. This is what we want the great Kansas comeback to be all about. That great Kansas comeback, it's about your kids and your grandkids moving home, not to Texas. We want them here. We want them so we don't have to fly somewhere to get our kids. We want them here. And they are coming back, and people are moving back into the state of Kansas and seeing all the things that are happening here. And it's happening here, and people are investing their lives because we've got a great future. This is a fabulous place. There is no place better. No place better to watch a sunset. No place better to have a family. No place better to live than Kansas. And we're going to make it even better. Thank you for being here. God bless y'all, and God bless Kansas.
All right, now, in the interest of time, we must get the closing statement in from Representative Paul Davis, please.
Kelly, our state simply is not headed in the right direction. The governor's experiment isn't working, and it's not going to work. It's damaging our schools. It's hurting our economy. It's jeopardizing our future. We have a clear choice in this election. I've been a champion for our public schools. I've been a 15-year member of my Chamber of Commerce. I know how to make a payroll. That's why I'm supported by over 100 current and former Republican elected officials. So if you believe that your governor shouldn't turn our state into an ideological laboratory, I ask for your support. If you believe that we don't need a red state model or a blue state model, but what we need is a proven Kansas model to grow our economy, I ask for your support. And if you believe we need a true champion in the governor's office for our public schools, I ask for your support. If you believe that we need a governor who will work with people from all political parties to solve the issues facing our state, I ask for your support. And if you believe that we need a governor who will always put the people of Kansas before his own personal political agenda, I ask for your support. I'm Paul Davis. I'm a lifelong Kansan. I'm a moderate. I'm an independent thinker. I'm a common sense leader, and together we can restore Kansas and get our state back on the right track. Thank you very much.
Thanks, folks. Thank you all. Thanks, guys.
You've been listening to a live debate, gubernatorial debate from the Kansas State Fair. I'm Kelly Lenz. Coming up, U.S. Senator Pat Roberts and his Republican challenger, Greg Orman.